Welcome back. My name is Chris, and in this video, we're going to take a look at how to deal with units of measure in NetSuite. Now, if you're not already familiar with them, units of measure is a feature that allows you to designate different measurements to items in the system. For example, if you have a certain item that you acquire or purchase in tons, but then you actually stock it in pounds and then sell it in ounces, the units of measure are important to tell the system how are you dealing with these things. So in this video, we're going to be walking through how to configure units of measure, how you'll actually see it in the system. And with that in mind, let's take a look at this. All right, so here we are in the system, and before we actually go to the units of measure themselves, I should point out that to be able to actually deal with units of measure, you do need to turn it on as a feature in Enable Features. There's a sub-tab for Company, and you'll see under that multiple units of measure. That does need to be turned on to do anything I'm about to show you in this video. So with that turned on, we can come to Lists, Accounting, and then down here to units of measure. Now we could create a new one, but first off, let's just see what existing units of measure we have. So we're going to open that up in a separate tab. And it looks like we have 3 units of measure. We have just a default one, and then there's one for eaches and one for weight. So eaches is pretty common if you maybe acquire things in cases of 12 and then you sell them in individual each items. And then of course, weight is the example I just gave. So we can see what we've got so far, and we can see on the right here what is the base unit for each of those types. In this case, it's hours, eaches, and pounds. Let's create a new unit of measure just to get a concept of how this would work. So we're going to hit new. In this particular case, let's do length. So we're going to say length, and we're going to start with inches. Or I'm going to say inch, and then we'll go inches. Abbreviation would be IN, and then IN is also going to be the plural abbreviation in this case. And we're going to come to the far right here and specify that this is the base unit. So by specifying it's the base unit, we're locking that in as this is what we're dealing with. And now every other level of this unit of measure is going to be in relation to that base unit. So by selecting this base, it immediately puts the conversion rate over here as 1. So you'll see how that comes into play in a second. Let's hit add on this, and we're going to add a foot. And so we'll say plural is feet, and the abbreviation is FT in both instances. And now from a conversion standpoint, it's basically saying in relation to the base, how many of the base is in this one. So there's 12 inches in a foot, so we put 12. We'll hit add on that, and let's also do a yard. So we're going to do yard, it's yards, and then YD, and YD, and then from a conversion standpoint, it's not in relation to feet, it's in relation to the base, which is inches. So there's actually going to be 36 inches in a yard. So we're going to hit add on that. All right, so we now have this properly set up. We can hit save on that, and we've created our own unit of measure. You can see right here, length and base unit is in inches. Great. So now that is really the simplicity of how you would set up units of measure. You can get more complex with these things. You can add as many as you want. I think there's a limit of 650, but frankly, most people have it quite simple, right? They'll have cases and sell in eaches or something like that. Maybe for volume, you might acquire things in gallons, but then sell it in quarts or liters, etc. So that's how you would configure it. Let's now take a look at how this then influences item records themselves. So let's come over. I have a item I was recently dealing with here. So this is a non-inventory item, pellets. So this is just some kind of material. The particular item is really not of consequence. We just want to see how are these units of measure going to be influencing this thing. So when initially creating the item, that is when you would best practice. That's when you would go in and you would specify the units of measure for that item if it was relevant. So you can see over on the right here, this is where we have and where we dictate the units of measure. So in this particular case, it looks like the units was set as weight. And we've got a few different options here. It looks like we purchase this thing in pounds, but we sell it in ounces. And we can see the base unit here is in pounds, which we obviously had that set earlier in the system. You can also have additional factors. You can have it purchased in one, stocked in another, sold in a third. There's a few different ways you can have it, but in this case, it's just purchasing and sales. So if you want to see how this comes into play, we can actually scroll down here and you can see under sales and pricing, Notice under minimum quantity, it's telling us in ounces because that's from a sales standpoint, and from primary unit of sales is ounces. But if we switch over to purchasing, this subtab here, now if we scroll down, we can see the purchase price, $2.75 per pound, because that's the unit of measure that's dictated. Now, this is a non-inventory unit, so we don't have also the inventory and the stocking, like how much do we have on hand. But if we did have that tab, we would be looking at it. Again, initially up on the top right here, we would have a stocking option here. And based on what we set there, we would be seeing, let's say in Chicago or in Detroit, our various locations, we'd be seeing the quantity based on whatever we selected as that unit of measure. And that's really the simplicity of dealing with units of measure in NetSuite. If you found this particular video helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. With all that in mind, I hope to see you in the next video.